Next slide. Do we all commit to the following the community agreements for today's meeting, and to gently call in our colleagues and collaborators if needed? Thank you. I will now pass it over to the co-chairs to discuss the timeline.
Greetings, everybody. I apologize for keeping my camera off. I'm in the middle of parking lot at the moment for a kids' soccer game and stuff. But anyway, with that being on record, timeline, as you guys see on your screen, we are now actually moving into our concluding phase. With that being said, checking out our timeline, the previous phases as they're spelled out to you over here on the screen, currently what we're doing right now is we're in the final phase, the concluding phase. And what the concluding phase will do for us is that we're going to review pretty much everything that was done in the previous phases, and we're going to convert it into proposed city code and the settlement agreement, and approving those for council consideration along with the report. So what happens at this point is the commission's going to work until the end of next month, August 31st, 2023. And then after that, at some point soon, a specific date to be determined, we're going to present the proposals to the city council for their consideration and approval after it finishes meeting. In the next slide, you see here, the outcome documents the commission is creating in this phase will include proposed changes to the city code, as we mentioned, final reports of the Police Accountability Commission, which include the explanations and rationales for the legal text, recommendations for the board's bylaws or the Bureau's policies, recommended changes to the settlement agreement, and recommendations to other levels of government, such as the city council. And in this slide, as you see here, this slide is the project plan for our concluding phase of the Police Accountability Commission's work. This slide is for members of the public to be able to understand how the commission gets from now through the end of the phase. The blue boxes are the public meetings, and the pink boxes are the consultations with the Police Accountability Commission's attorneys. Today's meeting falls into the blue boxes with the purple border, as you see right there. And right there in this screen, you're going to see, basically following today, here are the upcoming meetings of the Police Accountability Commission we'd like to highlight. On Thursday, Commission will be holding public meetings from 7:15 to 9 p.m. And the commission will also hold an executive session prior to that from 6:30 to 7:10 p.m. on Thursday, pursuant to ORS code 192.660. Next Monday, August 7th, there's an executive session of the full Police Accountability Commission and no public meeting. There's a community information session on August 12th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. It will be hybrid with an in-person location at the Lentz Commons and a Zoom option. So reviewing today's meeting purpose, we're going to start to review several documents that might be useful in revising previous decisions and documents, such as the areas of agreement documents. These documents include the final checklists of tasks, the community input tracker, the discussion group reports, the equity reviews and values and goals, and staff suggestions based off of gaps or contradictions or technical edits. The legal review and consultations will be discussed during the executive session, including the one held earlier today. There will be time to discuss proposed changes to the areas agreement on reporting and transparency and oversight staff. Prior to discussion on the proposed changes, the commission is going to review its own values and goals. After discussing, but before making a decision, the commission will hear public comment. Later today, we will also have a general public comment. And I'll pass it back to the facilitators. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, okay, sorry. I apologize. I have one more section. Review of values and goals. Now, before we move to discussing the documents, inputs and more, we're going to review the values and goals. Oh, so I think I handed off to the staff from here, the facilitator and staff. Right?
Yep.
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, appreciate it.
Staff?
Yes, thank you. So as the PAC has progressed, they have moved the review of the values and goals up to the sort of top of the meeting. And so we'll be reviewing this once for both of the documents that'll be discussed later today. As you're looking through this document, please feel free to think about not only what values and goals are relevant to the areas of agreement on reporting and transparency, but also oversight staff. And we can circle back to this later if anyone would like to do it. This document was approved March 24th, 2022, last year, and was at the time agreed to by the commission, who also agreed that they would circle back to before any substantive decision, meaning any decision on what would eventually become a recommendation. And so it has this introductory page. It also has 6 values, each of which has 1 or 2 corresponding goals and several success criteria or considerations, which are self-imposed benchmarks for the PAC to use in evaluating its own drafts before deciding whether or not to finalize them, and eventually whether or not to send them to the city council. So we'll scroll through this. Numbers 3 and 5 do have a page break between them. There are 4 total pages, and we're on page 2 right now. So just kind of scroll through this, and then we'll ask if co-chairs would like to point out anything specific on the 2 documents.
Co-chairs, you have anything that you would like to share about the document at this moment?
I'm just going to scroll through the whole thing first, actually.
Okay.
This is the end of the document. So happy to scroll up if anyone would like to go back to any particular portion. Would current full commission co-chairs or co-chairs of the relevant subcommittees like to point out any particular values, goals, or considerations that you feel are particularly important to highlight in the conversation on reporting and transparency?
Co-Chair Michelle Wesley, do you have any encouraging words? Yeah.
Hi, one of the 3 co-chairs and Commissioner Charlie Michelle Wesley. Usually what I ask is any co-chairs of either one of these committees, the reporting and transparency or the oversight staff, to maybe point out some of the or one or more values that are particularly valuable to their particular document. Yeah, that's basically it.
Thank you, Co-Chair Wesley. Angie?
Hi, thank you. I did want to, last time I pointed out transparency and trustworthiness, but the very last value, the measurement of it, I just want to make sure that we put a little bit more thought into the future board. And Steph, if you could scroll all the way down to the bottom, I would really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Continual effectiveness. I just want to make sure that we help this future board structure themselves in a way that they will be able to measure their effectiveness in the future. And going back, I think we did, but I am going to pay extra attention to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments from the commissioners regarding?
Then I guess the follow-up question
Yes,
is if there are anything that either full commission co-chairs or any member from that subcommittee as well would like to highlight as particularly relevant for oversight staff.
There are no hands raised. May we move forward?
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Staff, I can move on? Next, staff will walk the PAC through the updated documents being provided to you, and then we will have an open discussion.
Yes, thank you. So as you may recall from previous meetings, the PAC will be able to look at several documents as inputs into potential revisions or changes of direction based off of feedback to the drafts from community, based on legal feedback, based off of city council feedback, and more. These are the legal feedback aside, as that's discussed in executive session. Everything else is a growing source of information as there are more reports coming in, more being documented, and more being summarized for the PAC. So on Thursday, there were several items which members volunteered to read and report back on. That won't be happening today since many of those have not yet been sent out. But there are some things that can be discussed today that we'll do right now. So I'll start by probably the biggest update this time is the community input tracker. So this is a spreadsheet, and this is everything that you're going to see on screen, by the way, is available to the public as well. So this is what the public comments that came in were from members of the community to the Police Accountability Commission. Last time it was updated only through February of 2023. This is now updated. There's still a couple gaps, but many more comments have been added, including all the people who gave public comment for this meeting. And I'll pause here and just say thank you to all of the members of the community who gave public comment. And there's quite a few in here that relate to each of the two documents. And it's just organized by date and when it came in and things like that. It's also just reorganized in general. So that's one of the biggest changes, and you can see a lot of different comment has come in on various different issue areas as well. So that's one thing. The next thing, and we talked about this at the last meeting, which was on Thursday of last week, was the discussion group reports. So these there's just the one that we showed, so we won't go through this again because last time, last meeting, this was something that the PAC did go through. So this was from Spanish-speaking Portlanders, and again, the recommendations from the members who participated in it, the community members, and the conclusion, which is the sort of the summary, is in here. There are 11 more on their way to you, many of which are drafted, and that'll all be kind of summarized in one big document so that it's easier to digest. And then certainly those who volunteer to read specific ones can read it in the smaller separated out files. So that's another item. The third item, which members have also seen in the past, is the checklist, which is less about the content of the recommendations and more about the, oops, spreadsheet here, more about the process of it. So all the different things which the PAC is required to do under the charter, under the council as well. And this is a lot of different things, so I fully want to acknowledge that there's a lot coming your way. There is the city council memo to the PAC, which came in on June 9th. I'm gonna need to pull that one up. I don't actually have it, but it is comments of things to consider from the city council and desired things to be addressed by the city, or by the things that the city council wanted the PAC to address in its revisions and eventually in its code recommendations. And I have that here. It is loading. Apologies for the empty box here as well. And there's a lot of content in here that may be of relevance to you in specific documents from the city council. And finally, there are some staff edits that are being developed. These are technical edits, so there are things like terminology changes over time. PAC started work on documents, many months ago, in terms like agency and bureau and office, just making those consistent across the board. Grammatical fixes, things like that, are all things that staff's going to be working on to try and get a sort of package of things to look at. So all of these are coming, and this is the last time we'll kind of walk through each of these. In the future meetings, staff will just say this is what changed from the last meeting to today, or what's new. But wanted to mention it and give members of the commission a chance to talk about what you have received already, which again is that one discussion group report, the equity updates review, which is again a partial, it's not fully complete yet, from equity practitioners, the values and goals, the community input tracker as well. So yeah, I'll pause here and pass it back over to facilitators and to co-chairs. Thank you.
Thank you, staff. Now we will let members discuss anything that came up today that you'd like to mention and discuss in the context of possibly changing your previous decisions on areas of agreement. Later this meeting, the PAC will have the chance to revisit the areas of agreement on reporting and transparency and areas of agreement on oversight staff. We ask you to follow our normal discussion rules. Please be brief each time you speak. Even though you can speak multiple times, please be facilitated and remember that we use a weighted stack in our discussions. Finally, please be forward-thinking in your comments. Who would like to get us started? Commissioner Handelman?
Yeah, thank you very much. So I just pulled up the chat from the last meeting. Just broadly speaking, and maybe I can put these in the chat, or maybe the staff can help and put them in the chat. Broadly speaking, we have several things that we just got a really quick review of that we need to review while we're getting our final documents done. These discussion group reports that were generated, we don't have a whole lot of them yet, but a couple of people offered to look at those. The equity reviews, which I don't know if you saw, we got some of those today in our packet just before the meeting. That was done by a facilitator that reviewed our various areas of agreement to make sure that we meet our equity goals. the council letter that the staff mentioned, the checklist of all the things that we said we put into the garden plot, was a parking lot at one point, and then the community input tracker. And there's a couple of people who volunteered last time to do whatever is needed. Personally, I would really like it, and I don't want to call anybody out by name, but I would like it if somebody can specifically volunteer to look at that letter from council and make sure that we're checking all those boxes. And I mean a commissioner, if you can go through that document and just make sure that we are checking those boxes. And I don't know, if you want to put that in the chat just to host some panelists, just so we know if that's something you want to do, or if you want to raise your hand, that would be great. And then if there's anybody who's interested in looking at those equity reviews, they're not very long. I actually looked at the ones we have myself today, but I think it would just be helpful to have somebody that, when we get to that part of the meeting, somebody can say, okay, well, I looked at the equity reviews and this is what I think we need to do. So then we want to volunteer to do that. If you can put that in the chat as well, that would be great. Oh, I think my co-chair.
Commissioner, I'm sorry. I saw a hand raised.
I was just volunteering.
Oh, okay. Commissioner Michelle Wesley is volunteering to.
I was just volunteering to do the
Okay.
For the
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
I'm not doing it right now. I'm going to review it and get back to you.
No. Just between
Okay.
now and then, right? I mean, to the extent possible, if you can open. I mean, I don't know if we're going to take a break tonight or not because our meeting's so short. But if you can open up the ones that are relevant to today's documents and have those handy when we get to them, that would be great. Just because there's 3 of us co-chairs, but there's a lot of material, and there's, well, at least 19 of us who are actively engaged right now in the commission, and the more we can spread out the work, the better. All right. I'm sorry, I just jumped in again, facilitator. If there's anybody else that has something to say about these documents that we just were presented, please say so now.
Thank you, Commissioner Handelman. Do we have any comments or questions? Okay. Commissioner Faith.
Hi, good evening. My name is Faith Aiken. I use she, her pronouns. Hi, everyone. I think, okay, awesome. You're putting it in the chat. I think I've had a hard time keeping track of what's still needed and maybe even what I've volunteered for and what has come in and is available to review. Oh, you are all in the chat. So I'm wondering if there could be like a summary sent out, just because this is so much, and I'm really happy to pitch in. I think I'm just having kind of a hard time keeping track of what we have and what we don't have, and what I've said I do and what I haven't said I do. So all that to say is, yes, if I volunteered for many things, but if there are areas that we don't have volunteers for, I'm happy to step in.
Thank you. Staff?
Yeah, and there will be a summary coming out along with a link to where you can find all these in a static place going forward. So that should also help instead of having to hunt for the actual documents in email. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, staff. Do we have any more questions or comments? Okay. May we move on? Okay, great. Thank you. The PAC will now begin, sorry. I went too fast on my notes. Revisions and updates of previous PAC agreements. The PAC will now begin discussing documents update. Today we'll be reporting and transparency and oversight staff and if time permits, officer accountability as well. On Thursday, the PAC will discuss officer accountability and also open it up to be proposed changes to any of the relevant phases 3, 4, or 5 documents. We will now pass it to co-chairs of staff for a 1 to 2 minute walkthrough of the proposed updates to the areas of agreement on reporting and transparency. After that, we will review the discussion guidelines and then start the full group discussion. Co-chairs?
Yeah, thanks. I last time suggested that what we do is pull up the first document, which is in this case reporting and transparency, and just kind of review it section by section really quickly without stopping and talking about it. And then I will try to flag for you the stuff that we know that we need to talk about. But if you have anything else that you want to talk about, you can either have the staff stop the document and flag it now, or we can come back to it later. So this is the document we're talking about, reporting and transparency. This is the table of contents, and we can scroll down to the first. I think there's an introduction on this one. Yeah, and I actually have a suggestion in the opening in the intro, but we'll come back to that. Just sort of explaining what this is all about and the importance of transparency and reporting. All right, so the next page, if you would, staff. So this is the first section's about transparency at meetings and hearings, public participation. Okay, let's go on to the meeting with the staff director. Okay, 3. Oh, so there's no 3. So B is reporting to the public and city council. This is, I think this is where we get into more very specifically what's in the report in the next section. Yeah, so there's a very long list of what's supposed to be in these reports in this, but again, we're revisiting these because we're going to be turning this into code and sending it to the city council about a month from now. So if there's anything that we should add or subtract, this is the time to do it. Or we're probably going to come back to this one more time, frankly. So then 3, if there is one, I don't have the original document pulled up, staff, sorry. Yeah, this is still the list of what's going to be in the annual report, folks. So just for those playing along at home. Oh yeah, so 3 is about the raw data that the board is going to make available to the public, and then 4 is about dashboards, which will contain data for the public consumption. 5 is about accessibility. 6 is about confidentiality, which we've talked about in this other context as well. D is about distributing the information and engaging with the community, and I think there's a very kind of another detailed plan here about how community engagement is going to be done. Is that right, staff? Next page. No, that's it. Oh, that must be somewhere else. Oh, that's in the staff document, I think. Okay. So I believe that if you go back to the intro paragraph, staff, where it says transparency is about the public's right to know the public's business. Just for clarity, that we're talking about the board's efforts here. I think in the context of public bodies. I think I'd like to add at the beginning of that sentence. So in the context of public bodies, comma, transparency is about the public's right to know the public's business. So that we're not trying to make a definition of transparency about saran wrap or something. Are you able to edit that document?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the thing? Yes, we can definitely.
My proposal was to add in front of the word transparency in the context of public bodies, comma. Turn it back to the facilitator if anybody has discussion or questions about that.
Thank you, Commissioner Handelman. We will now move to discussing the proposed changes to the PAC areas of agreement on reporting and transparency. As we go through, we'll address proposed changes from co-chairs as well as other members received in advance. The commission can also make new proposed text changes. After that, we will move into a decision-making process on approving proposed changes. We ask you to follow our normal discussion rules. Please be brief each time you speak. Even though you can speak multiple times, please be facilitated and remember that we use a weighted stack in all of our discussions. Finally, be forward-looking in your comments. Who would like to get us started? Co-chairs?
Sorry, yeah, so I already made one proposal, and so are we gonna, kind of adopt the proposals one at a time, or we're gonna just make a bunch of proposals and try to adopt them all at once at the end?
I think it's your discretion, but I believe we're gonna adopt them individually.
Okay.
One at a time?
Yeah, no, I think that's all right. I'm a little stuck and I can't really, I might need to just send something to the staff in the chat before we move on. But yeah, if people want to discuss that change that I just already made, let's do that and then see what happens next.
Okay, sure thing. Do we have any comments or questions or need points of clarity on this amendment, on this change? Okay, I do not see any hands raised at this moment. Do we have a general agreement to accept this change made by Commissioner Handelman? I can't see. Can we have, yeah, there we go. Thanks. Do we have a general agreement? Do we have any strong opposition to the recommended change? Can we one more time? I guess some have their cameras off. I want to make sure that we capture everyone. If your cameras are off, do you mind using your raise hand features to make sure that we have a general agreement
Corinne,
on that proposed change?
Corinne,
Yes,
can I just
yes,
make a quick suggestion? This is
yes.
usually we ask, is there any strong opposition first?
Mhm.
And then if there's agreement.
Okay, thank you for that
Kind of
clarification.
confused us. Yeah.
Oh, okay, no worries.
Thank you.
Okay. All righty. In that case, do we have any strong opposition to the proposed change?
And Corinne, facilitator Corinne, co-chair Dan want to talk first, I guess, before the question.
Okay.
Unless he was raising his hand, but I may be wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, facilitator Laura. Well, I feel like we already dealt with this change, that you've already asked the questions, and I think that
Okay.
we saw on this one. I wanted to propose a second change for this section, just ahead of this.
Okay, sure.
If that's okay. So putting in some language that reflects the charters, why we're able to do this based on what the charter says. And the city charter says the board shall make provisions for regular and open meetings. Oops, I didn't put that for everybody. I'll do it again. Okay, so the board shall make provisions for regular and open meetings, public transparency and reporting on the board's activities. One of the goals of the board will be to remove barriers for board members to fully participate in the work of the board. So, Actually, I'm not sure that second sentence is relevant to this document, but is anybody, so I just, it seems like in the other areas of agreement, we pointed to the parts of the charter that led us to our agreements. So I want to put that above the transparency comment, staff. So just if you can flip that so it's above the last. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Handelman. Do we have any strong opposition to the proposed change?
Sorry,
Again, okay.
just wanted to clarify one thing. Commissioner Co-Chair Dan, you mentioned verbally that the second sentence might not be as relevant. Did you want that in there or?
Yeah, I think we should just pull that out.
Okay, just wanted to be sure before we.
Yeah, that's more for our board membership. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Again, if you're off camera during the decision-making process, we ask that you use your hand raise feature or come on camera to give us your decision. Thank you. So do we have any strong opposition to this proposed change made by Commissioner Handelman? Okay. Do we have okay, I saw a hand raise. Do we have a general agreement to the proposed change made by Commissioner Handelman? Great, thank you. May we move on? Co-chairs? Okay.
Yeah, I have another one I'm working on the text right now. I don't know if anybody else has anything else to add, but it's in A1, just so if people want to look at what we have there right now.
I'm just coming off mute. Hi, this is Faith. Commissioner Handelman, can you explain just
I was reading
this
this and
edit?
you couldn't, I was on mute.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
It says, as stated above, the full oversight board will hold regular public meetings and offer time for community input, including through public comment, testimony, or other means. Special meetings of the full oversight board or subcommittees may also be held, and this is the most key important part, I think, consistent with relevant laws and rules of the board, hearings and meetings will be open to the public. And that is because, as contemplated in the officer accountability document, there are going to be times when not all hearings or meetings can be open to the public. So we just want to say that they'll be open to the public as much as possible, and that's the main thrust of the change. Otherwise, it's mostly just wordsmithing.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any more comments or questions regarding to the proposed change? Is there any strong opposition to the proposed change? Do we have a general agreement on the proposed change? Okay. Thank you. May we move forward? I
I think,
see
go on, yeah.
Commissioner Connie Wan has a hand raised.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that was left over from my vote.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay, so those are the main proposals that I just want to clean up a little bit before we move on to the next thing. And we talked with facilitators earlier that instead of adopting the document again tonight and then reopening it, if we have more changes to make once we get that proposed code, I think we should leave this document on the table and we'll come back and finish it up at a future meeting, unless anybody has objections. And of course, if anybody else has other suggestions.
Any additional comments?
So, commissioners, I know I'm very warm where I am. It's late. We've been working hard. But if nobody else has comments on this document, then facilitator, perhaps it's the right time to move on to oversight staff. I don't know.
Yes, in a moment, we are going to take a short, brief break for 5 minutes. That's okay. We will return back at 8:32. Thank you. Thank you all for coming back. We just concluded one portion of the document. May we move forward to the next section? Co-chairs?
Yes, thank you. And I would like to do the same thing where we just pull up the oversight staff document, scroll through the whole thing. I'll highlight the things that we know that we're going to look at, and then if you have anything else to add, everybody just jump in as you may. So this is the oversight staff document that Commissioner Amechi and I were the co-chairs of this subcommittee. And So this is the table of contents. That's, we don't need really to do it. Here's an introduction. We do not have at this time part of the charter in there. I don't know if that's something that we can add. I'll take a look at that while we're scrolling through other stuff. And section A is about the bureau director. And of course, we have a name for the bureau now. We call it an office. So, I don't know how much retroactive retrofitting we have to do. I think that the staff will do that for us when we get the areas of agreement put together. But, obviously we're not calling it a bureau anymore because it's too confusing with the police bureau. This first sentence in A1A, we're going to have to revisit that. And so, I'll come back and talk about that when we get to the end, after we get to the end. But that's the first change I know I want to make there. And we talk about the hiring process for the director and, oh, just flagging that. Okay, thank you. I'm going to see if I can get my copy of this pulled up. My computer's acting very weird today, just so you know. Oh, I know what happened. All right, so then it's about hiring the director, and then let's go on, scroll down to the rest of A. The authority and duties of the director. Okay. And then A3 is performance reviews, and again, the board is going to make those performance reviews. Next, qualifications. Okay, and then in B we have the staff structure, qualification, duties, and we talked about some of the key people that'll be on the staff: the auditor, inspector general position, and an attorney or more attorneys. And then other positions we talked about. And we have like specific kinds of jobs that they're going to be, and most of this we're leaving up to the director and the board to decide what to do. But we just want to make sure these kinds of skills are available in the staff. Then we've got the advocates and the investigators and the mediators. And we have, if you scroll down some more staff, then we have this part about the training for the staff, which is B5. We talked about that a little bit when we were doing the transition planning. And there is something that's in B5 that was flagged by the equity review. So we should probably look at that as B5A Roman numeral 8. So yeah, let's flag that. Let's come back to it. Staff qualifications and staff duties whenever you're ready, staff. Current PAC staff, not talking about the staff of the oversight board. Staff duties, qualifications, and then supportive services. Then we have in C, this is where it talks about the budget, and we want to make a little tweak to this discussion of the budget just to make it consistent with the charter. Then we have the office location, where the board is housed in the city's government, and then the hours of operation. So that's the gist of what's in this document. Again, if anybody else has ideas about what you would like to add, please do. One other thing about the budget. So we have that minimum 5% of the budget, and I also want to come back to this section and briefly talk about the concept that we've been hearing from the community a lot around budget advisory. So we have some possible proposed language. If anybody else has proposed language, we want to hear from that from you first, but we have some that we might be able to use. So, staff, can we double back to the first area that I flagged, and then I'll turn it over to the facilitator to let us know how the discussion is going to go.
Thank you.
So, facilitator, do you want to just guide people to the discussion rules, or you think we're okay with that?
Yes, we're going to go to discussion rules, but
yeah. Do you think we're okay on that from the earlier discussion?
Yes. Give me 1 second. So the commission has completed discussion on a document of the proposed changes to areas of agreement on reporting and transparency. With all the changes we've made today incorporated into the text, there's potential agreement in a document that was circulated that gives us some context as this decision. Before seeing if there's any consensus around approving the document, we're going to hear from the public. Then we'll
Oh.
ask members,
Right.
as members want to make any final tweaks, and finally,
Facilitator of elevation. So that's the step
Staff?
we decided. That's the step we decided to skip tonight. Now we're going to start discussion on the second document. We're going to table that document, so we're not adopting it again. So we don't need the public input.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that we're ready. So this is the discussion rules for the oversight staff discussion we're about to have. Everybody cool on that? We ready to move forward? Okay, so let me go. Let's go back to A1 staff. It's getting late, and I can't tell you how hot it is in here, but it's probably 85 degrees or more. So I just want to try to move along if we can. But I'll try to talk slowly. All right. So it says here the director will be appointed by and serve at. Oh, it looks like that's already been changed. Oh, there it is. A3B is what we wanted to change. All right. So what we did was when we created this document, we pasted in language from the existing code that says the director will be removed only upon a finding of cause. Well, guess what, folks? Being removed on a finding of cause and being an at-will employee are different things. So we need to change the language here to make that clear. And let's see if I've got some language that I can do. Yeah. So the director shall serve at will and may be removed. Are you getting this stuff? The director shall serve at will and may be removed from office by a vote of a supermajority of the board, period. Decision of whether to remove a director shall be in the board's sole discretion and may be for any reason. That's more consistent with what it says in the charter. Nope, that's not the right one. Okay, I'll fix that up, sorry. Okay, there it is. Sorry, that first one is included strike-throughs. Okay. So this is to replace A3B, what I just put in the chat. Staff, are you able to paste that in there?
I think that's it. Sorry, I had the screen share off for a second.
Okay, thanks. All right, back to you, facilitator, for discussion and perhaps acceptance of this proposal.
Thank you, Commissioner Handelman. Do we have any comments or questions regarding this change? This recommended change. Oops. Camera's off. Okay, I see Commissioner Michelle Wesley.
Yeah, let me just read that last sentence. The decision of whether to remove a director shall be in the board's sole discretion and may be for any reason. Should we not the decision of whether to remove the director shall be in the board's sole discretion and may be for any reason. It feels like maybe what? That's just the way it reads to me. Maybe it makes sense to y'all, but it seems like something's missing. Maybe done for any reason. Maybe I don't know if I like the word done. Is there a better word? The decision of whether to remove the director shall be at the board's sole discretion and may be made for any reason. That sounds better.
Yeah, yeah, so decision is made. Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Thanks.
Commissioner Jay?
I just want to clarify, because it sounds like we're removing cause from, like, that there has to be some cause for the director to be removed. Because yeah, if it's made for any reason, that doesn't necessarily imply cause. So I guess I was wondering if that is explicitly like what this change is trying to do, and if whether it is or isn't, just kind of what the, I don't know, maybe you explained this and I missed it, but the reasoning behind that change.
Yeah, thank you. My former co-chair. So yes, I just put in the chat, this is from the charter language. And again, I didn't, you and I didn't have this, the benefit of this analysis at the time that we were looking at this, but my understanding is that when you say for cause, that is different from when you're saying they serve at will. So if we are going to say that the director can only remove for cause, then we're changing what it says in the charter, and we don't have only the people of Portland have the ability to change the charter. So we need to make this reflective of what's in the charter. Does that answer your question? Seeing the staff's hand, facilitator.
Yeah, I just was, and I see that the hand went up now. I was hoping that we could ask maybe for a little bit more clarity on the distinction, if Deputy City Attorney Sarah Ames could kind of explain what the difference is between at will versus for cause. So that's okay with everyone. Thank you.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi, can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to say for cause is a term with very specific legal significance. You cannot be removed unless there is a reason you did something wrong. You weren't performing appropriately, misconduct, some of the things that you had mentioned. And so you have kind of civil service protections that, or, often in a collective bargaining agreement, there'll be for cause only terminations. Quite some time ago, the city of Portland had those kinds of protections for bureau directors. They've removed them all. And so now they're all at will employees by city charter, I believe. And so this is consistent with that. The charter language that they are at will employees is consistent with the way other bureau directors are treated. I understand that you found the code, and I believe it's the code for the IPR director. The IPR director, when they moved out of the auditor's office, we specifically wanted to continue to insulate them and their decisions from the city council. And so there were some additional protections put in for that position when it moved out from under the auditor's office to be appointed by the council as a whole and could only be removed for cause. I mean, some of that language came from the desire to make sure that IPR was insulated from the council's politicking, but it does, obviously you have to comply with the charter language here. I hope that was more helpful than confusing.
Thank you, Sarah. Any further comments, questions, or points of clarity? Okay. Do we have any more comments or questions regarding the proposed change? Okay. Do we have strong opposition to the proposed change? Do we have general agreement for the proposed change?
Okay, thank you. So we have, I think, did we flag 2 or 3 more areas, staff?
Thank you. Maybe.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of a lag, facilitator Corinne, just so you know. I think there's 2 more that you mentioned as you were going through. There's the one on B5A.
Oh yeah, and then two
Sort
in the
of.
budget.
Yeah.
All right, so how are people feeling? I mean, we're already at 8:50 and there was a pre-meeting that was not open to the public. If we try to get through these other 3 changes, my guess is we'll probably go about 5 to 10 minutes past the hour. What are people thinking about that? 1 thumbs up. 1 scrunchy face. Do you think we can go 5 to 10 minutes past the hour today and just get this done, just get this document done? So, well, unenthusiastic agreement. All right, so let's move on to the second one then, which is this one that was recommended by our by the equity analysis. And again, I don't. Oh, okay. Thank you, staff. I was going to say I don't have it right in front of me. This is recommended by the person that did the equity analysis for us, just to add those to the cultural competency training for the staff. Anti-racism, anti-bias, and collaborative decision-making. Back to you, facilitator.
Thank you. Do we have any comments or questions or need points of clarity on the proposed change? Seeing that there are no hands raised at the moment for any comments or questions, do we have any strong opposition to the proposed change? Do we have a general agreement for the proposed change? Remember, jazz hands or raised hands, using the raised hand feature. Thank you.
Not sure. You might need to cut your video off because you're really lagging behind there. Facilitator, you're in.
Commissioner Handelman, your voice is a little distorted. I couldn't understand. I couldn't hear you. But staff, if you don't mind, can you? I think we need to look at the. Oh, it's my internet. Okay.
Right. So I'm ready to go to the next area, since we have just approved that.
Okay.
And these are both under budget.
May we move on?
Yes.
Thanks. So, yeah, next up was under C1, which is budget, and there were 2 different flags. Wherever you'd like to start.
Right. So I want to start with C1A. So what we wrote here says a minimum of 5% of the PPP budget. What's in the charter is something that's proportional to 5% of the PPP budget. And it's probably better just because it's causing some confusion in various circles in the city about whether we're trying to leave the Port and Leaffield with only 95% of what the city allots to it and give the other 5% to the board. Instead, the PPP budget is its own, and the board's budget is 5% or more of that amount. So my proposal is just to use the funding, the funding language from the charter, and get rid of the words at minimum of. Yeah. There you go. Thank you, staff. Okay, facilitator, can you guide us through?
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments to the proposed change? Do we have any strong opposition to the proposed change? Do we have a general agreement for the proposed change?
That was very
Thank you.
fancy, Amy.
Thank you. May we move on to the next section, please?
Whenever staff is ready. Well, I think we're right there, because we're planning to add, as the next section, some language around the question around review of the board's budget. So I know Commissioner Pitts, you brought this up. Did you have any language? We do have language we can propose, but if you have language, or anybody else has language around budget advisory, please speak now or forever hold it for something else. Okay. So staff, do you have that language we drafted up before?
Yep,
I'm not
just
sure
a
if I can
moment.
find it. I think it was in the chat from our pre-meeting.
And just bear with me a moment, please.
Okay, thank you. Just again, for the audience and the other commissioners, there's a lot going on, and we're doing the best we can to keep this thing moving, to get ourselves over the finish line by the end of next month. We have 31 days left in this process. All right, so the proposed language is the board will have discussions in public about the allocation of its budget, and at its discretion may appoint a budget advisory committee from the community. And then that last part wasn't supposed to be part on the screen. So the idea is we're going to leave it up to the board to make that decision instead of us as a PAC making the decision now. You know, we welcome all the community input that's been asking for this. I think the idea would be to have it something that they have to discuss their budget in a public meeting, and that way they have to have public input on it. But if they want to have a committee about that they can make that decision once they exist.
Thank you. Commissioner Tim Pitts, please.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so I had raised this because we've heard from the community a few times that they feel like this is a large budget and it needs some independent oversight. So I think this works well as a way to deal with it. I would just suggest, instead of may appoint a budget advisory committee, adding independent. So may appoint an independent budget advisory committee from the community, just to make clear that the intent is that the board may appoint this, you know, independent budget advisory committee of other community members that aren't part of the commission already. Which seems to make sense, because it seems like, you know, if the board wants to do it, then they could, and that would hopefully satisfy some of the concerns from community about this lack of oversight that they perceive there to be.
Thank you, Commissioner Pitts. Do we have any additional comments, questions, points of clarity for the proposed change?
Yeah, well, I think I'm going to make a clarification of my own, because I got a question in the chat about this. So there will have discussions in public about how to allocate its budget, is what I meant, not the allocation of its budget. Just so you know, so they're saying we're going to spend $50 in toilet paper. No, they don't have to get to that level, but you know what I mean. This much money for office supplies, this much money for staff, this much money for other needs of the board. That's what the intent was of that sentence.
Thank you for that clarification. Do we have any additional comments, questions for the proposed change? Do we have any strong opposition for the proposed change? Do we have a general agreement for the proposed change? Thank you. May we move on? Moving on to the next.
Yeah, well, unless anybody else has anything else to add to this document this evening, again, I'm going to say, let's just table this until we get the code in front of us, and we might have to come back and make some more adjustments. But that would be the last proposed change from co-chairs today.
Thank you. So now we're going to, we will now take open public comment on the issue that the PAC is discussing, or community members can also tell their story about policing and the police accountability. We ask the members of the public to keep their comments or questions to 3 minutes in length and raise their hand in a Zoom if you'd like to speak.
Facilitator Corinne, there is one.
See that there's
Okay, I'm unmuted. It's Barb Rainish. I use she, her pronouns. And I just wanted to thank you guys all for this hard, tedious work. I really, a lot of it. And I'm curious if there's a document and what it would be called or how one would find it that is like following the path that a complaint would take from beginning to end, sort of like this Schoolhouse Rock thing with the bill. And so I don't know if that exists, but that would help me as a member of the community picture this a little better, because a lot of this stuff is like really in the weeds and isn't like an overview like that. And that's all I've got. I don't want to keep people too long. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Barb. Do we have any more comments from the public? Okay.
I'd just like to tell Ms. Rainish that yes, there is a flow chart, and we'll paste that in the chat in a minute once we find it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Handelman.
Thank you. So now we're going to go to members' curiosity. Member curiosity is a brief period of time on today's agenda where members of the commission can bring items to discuss. This might be questions or follow-ups or an article that you've read that you'd like to share. We're not going to vote on anything during this time. We want to give space to multiple members to share. So please take 1 minute per person at most during this time. We'll get to suggestions in a moment, but we'll start asking if any members have questions about the PAC in its process that they'll like to have answered. Do we have any questions? Okay, thank you. We'll now open it up to suggestions follow-ups on articles that you would like to share or more. Does anyone have any member curiosities? Okay, I would like to turn it over to staff for next steps.
Yeah, thank you. So first, an apology. A couple people have just mentioned that it appears that the city website is doing some sort of maintenance right now. So in trying to find that flow chart or anything else, you might have some difficulties. And usually when that happens, they try to schedule it to the evening. But that's not always conducive to volunteer and advisory group schedules. So hopefully it'll be on the normal calendar, and which is to say a couple hours at most. So in general, just wanted to mention again that there are a bunch of reading materials coming your way, and there'll be a static link sent out with everything. The volunteer list in the chat has been getting built up. So before you drop off the call tonight, when it's over, meeting tonight, if you could please, if members could just please say which item or items you're most interested in reading and reporting back on. And that can start next week. And then, or sorry, I can start as early as Thursday. And then the other thing is that there is no meeting open to the public next Monday. The entire window is going to be an executive session of the PAC pursuant to ORS 192660. So that those are the only real next steps that haven't already been mentioned earlier on. Thank you.
Thank you, staff. Now moving on to the garden plot. This is a time for facilitators, co-chairs, and staff to summarize any items already brought up today which didn't fit into today's agenda. We'll recap those items here and use them in developing future agendas. We will be using this time to add new items not previously mentioned or to discuss any items, but we will use this list to develop future agendas so that items can be addressed. Recaps on a garden plot. Co-chairs or staff can add anything, but keep it brief. Commissioners, do you have anything you would like to add to the garden plot?
I do not want to add this to the garden plot, but I'm uploading right now flow chart the last flow chart that Commissioner Michelle Wesley and I. Oh, I don't know if you can hear me. I just uploaded the most recent version of the flow chart that Commissioner Michelle Wesley and I worked on for the Officer Accountability Commission. I found it on my hard drive, so it's in the chat now that people can download if they want to.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have anything additional that you would like to add to the garden plot? Staff, do you have anything?
In the reporting and transparency document, there was a reference in A1 to that. There'll be another couple of places where the provisions of allowing the board to have sessions that are not entirely open would come back up, and that's something that will be coming up in a couple of the other areas of agreement documents. So I guess it's not really needing to be flagged because it'll come up organically anyway, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Facilitator Victoria, do you have anything you would like to add to the garden plot?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. As a reminder, you can submit advanced public comment to the Police Accountability Commission via web form, voicemail, or postal mail. Thank you all to the members who attended today's meeting and for your contributions today. Thank you also to the interpreters. Finally, thank you to the members of the community for attending and contributing your thoughts and questions. If you not had already signed up for email updates, please also sign up to receive updates from the PAC. The next meeting of the Police Accountability Commission is Thursday, August 3rd. The executive session will be held pursuant to ORS 192.660. It's from 6:30 to 7:10 p.m. and the public portion of the meeting will start at 7:15 p.m. The time is now 9:10 p.m. and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all and have a good evening.
Good night, everyone.